We had, for a long time, probably 7-8 years, been talking about doing Greek mythology. It's a mythology fascinates us, and particularly Greek mythology because it's the richest of all. And it's very hard to do. It's very hard to find a precinct to do it in that feels like it will last. And I suppose the idea of Atlantis before it sank, because actually most of what's written about Atlantis is what an extraordinary city it was, not that it sank. Eventually it did. So we thought we'd combine those two things. And I think once that happened, and once we found some characters, because for us really probably the characters are more important, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, for a returnable series to work and for the format of the show, you've got to have a core cast of people that you care about and want to get excited about their journeys. And I think that was always the thing that we sort of wrestled with within the format of the show. And then, you know, working with Howard Overman, who is the third partner in our company, we started talking about characters, didn't we? And it was sort of Jason was the first, sort of the classic hero, who's a sort of a mixture of lots of different Greek heroes. And then we were just sort of, you know, who could he go with to complement that? And we loved the idea of having Hercules because it's such a recognisable character, but we liked the idea of the fact that he's not the character of legend, and that the idea that we had was this idea that he creates the myth and the legend of Hercules, and actually he's just a very good spin doctor. He's just very good at telling tales, basically. Yeah. So our Hercules is fat, he gambles, and you know
drinks
he's
too much,
drinks too much, and is always
takes all the
chatting
credit.
away. And that felt good fun, and
yeah,
a
once we found
counterbalance
that,
to,
we were sort of there actually.
And then we wanted a third person. We liked this idea that it was, you know, in a way a triangular relationship. So who better than Pythagoras? And Pythagoras is sort of before he created his theorem. So he's a young kind of lovable nerdy guy, and that just felt like a really nice tight solid sort of threesome. And then from that we kind of realised that we could bring stories to them, that they were the kind of the go-to people in Atlantis. And when we were first playing around with it, we sort of saw them as the kind of the Greek A team, you know, and we called them the Alpha team. And you know, obviously it's changed a lot since then, but that was key to us, is that when you're developing these series, is you've got to work out what the story each week is and how the format will work. And that all felt very, very good. And then you know, we have these amazing Greek myths and legends that we just pull through, and we do sort of origin stories where we sort of start a myth right from the very beginning. For example, Medusa, we don't see her as the snake-head goddess. We meet her as a very young, adorable young maid, and we tell the story of how she becomes the snake-head goddess over the series. So, you know, it's great fun to storyline, and there's always plenty of books to read and get lots of ideas from. So you're never struggling.
No, it's an embarrassment of riches, really, to be honest. You have to get interested, because you can't do it if you don't. Yes, we have researchers and people who help us, of course we do. But yeah, you have to get interested. You have to read a myth how it was, because then we want to turn it on its head and reinvent it, and you need to know it to do that. Yes. So yeah, we do.
But you forget how much Greek mythology and the basis for all the stories in Greek mythology are the fundamental parts of stories nowadays. I mean, you look at sort of Star Wars, for example, and there's a lot of mythology and myth in that, and you know, who is Luke Skywalker's father, and these are classic sort of things that are pulled from Greek mythology. So the influence of Greek mythology is everywhere in storytelling. So I think that's sort of fascinating as well.
They're the earliest stories in many ways that come down to us.
Yes.
So. This was the biggest green screen show we've ever done. So we took over this vast warehouse refrigeration unit on the Welsh border, and I mean, it's an enormous space. I can't really describe how big it is. Four stages, three of them big, and we built 2 huge green screen arenas, and probably 12 other sets, something like that. Some of the sets are very, very big, some are relatively small, but the really big stuff, the big temples, the big palaces, are all done on green screens. So that was more green screen than we've ever worked with, and probably any British show has done, to be honest.
And I think the key thing of when we talked about the show and when we were developing the format, for us it was about being epic and big, and the show having huge scale. Yeah. So hence why we rented such a massive, great big refrigeration unit, and why we use so much green screen.
Fridge, as we call it.
Yes.
And we also, but I think to complement that, we knew we had to go somewhere that would give us something. So we went down to Atlas Studios in Morocco, where there's some huge sets and some great landscapes, and the Atlas Mountains as well, which helps. And we did a fair bit of filming down there.
And that was incredible. I mean, you've got the Kingdom of Heaven set there, the Jerusalem set, which was absolutely phenomenal. This massive castle from one side looks like a castle in the desert, and then from the other side it's just scaffolding and little bits of wood. So it's
extraordinary place,
and it was amazing, and to be able to use that was fantastic, because it gave us a huge sense of scale, which is what we wanted.
Much bigger than a real castle. I mean, it really is much bigger than a real castle. So that complemented it all, and it's worked pretty well as a plan. You know, the challenge was you've got to create a whole city. You've got nothing,
and it was sort of macro and micro. So there was a whole kind of epic scale of it and big green screens, but also we had to pay attention to all the small details of what the extras looked like. You know, we wanted the world to feel kind of we needed it to sort of have a sort of sexy grittiness. So, you know, we wanted it to be a bit dirty and a bit sweaty, but in a kind of, you know, nice aspirational way. And so there was lots of conversations with makeup and costume about how we could make this world feel lived in. You know, Game of Thrones can use violence and sex, but in our show, you know, we didn't want to go down that route. So we wanted it to feel like a very visceral world. So there was lots of attention to sort of small details, and we had quite a few hilarious conversations about how do you make an offering to a god, and how do you say goodnight, and all of those sort of things.
It's tough. Yeah, you don't realise that every prop, everything anybody holds has to be thought through, because you're going, right, okay, where's my reference for this? Where am I taking it from? And what did it look like? And it becomes exhausting, because literally everything has to go through that process. It's not even like doing a period show where okay, we're in this period, therefore the bow and arrow look like this, or the saddle look like this. In our world, the saddle can look like anything, which is much harder.